There we go, live Monday. Thanks for being here for number 70 of these devotions. And time has flown by in such weird ways these last months, but really appreciate you guys being here for another of these devotions as we near the end of this series and near the end of afternoon devotions. We'll talk in the near future about sort of what's coming next. But as always, let's check in. I see Beth here. Beth, what are you thankful for? I see I'm getting some other messages coming in with thankfulness messages. Let's see. Alec, where are we at? Alec is thankful for no homework, so that's always a nice day, right? I'm sure Eric will check in a second with what he's thankful for. For me, let's see. Beth is thankful for pizza. Yeah, I like that. And I don't know if you can see very well. I got a lot of sun outside yesterday, but was wearing a mask. So I've got like sun over here, but I've got line here where the string was that no sun. I'm just thankful today that these tan lines are temporary. I'm thankful for that. So anyway, Eric is thankful for clouds. Hey, nice day out today, sort of keeping things a little bit cooler. I love how God just provides the things that we need. And so anyway, thankful for each and every one of you guys. So others that are here or watching later, definitely leave a note with what you're thankful for today. All right, quarter teen games. As we wrap this up, the last few opportunities for you guys. Last time we talked about Friday was the anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. The question was just what year did that happen? Correct answer was 1963. 1960s was really sort of the height of the civil rights movement, almost 60 years ago now. Closest answer was Emmy with 1959. So congrats to Emmy on another quarter for her total. So we got a new question for you today. Today we're talking about the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman. And so here's your question, well related. All right. How deep in feet is the deepest well that has ever been dug? And when I say that, I hand dug. So I guess that means not by machines. Anyway, the deepest hand dug well in the world. How deep in feet do you think that is? So let me know what you think. How deep in feet? The deepest hand dug well. That's apparently hard to say. I'm not really sure why. But anyway, so let me know what you guys think about that. One more quarter on the line. So anyway, all right. So let's talk about the woman at the well. And look, this is one where it's sort of, we don't know her actual name. Some people may refer to her as the Samaritan woman. I generally grew up referring to her as the woman at the well. So either one works, whatever. So we ask a lot of you youth ladies and former youth ladies and some of the adult ladies from church about sort of favorite women characters from the Bible. And one that I asked was Miss Diane Chestnut. If y'all have not had a chance to get to chat with her, I encourage you to do that. But just a godly lady, so appreciate her. She's checked in on some of these videos, but she mentioned that the woman at the well is her favorite for a couple of reasons. One, the change that we see in her life, which is absolutely spot on. And just the fact that she shared her faith, even right off the bat, is really a great example to us as well. And so I appreciate Miss Diane. I appreciate those words of truth and encouragement. And really that's a lot of what we'll see as we walk through this. This has been an interesting one for me because I think we talk about this story and her interaction with Jesus. I don't know that we talk a lot about sort of the lessons we learn from her as a person. That's something that I've tried to do with these is not as much the story, but the person themselves. What can we learn from their examples? So anyway, so we find her story in John chapter 4. So you may be familiar with the story. Jesus and his disciples are returning from Jerusalem to Galilee. They're going through Samaria, which most Jews would have gone around. They went through. They stop in this village called Sychar. And the disciples go into town at lunchtime to find food, and Jesus waits at this well. This woman comes out to draw water. The fact that she's coming in the middle of the day, as we'll see later, she had a past. probably not someone that was well respected in the community. And so while most people probably came to the well either early morning or late evening when it was cooler, she came in the middle of the day, probably, we think, because she didn't want to be around everybody else or they didn't want to be around her. But Jesus strikes up this conversation, which number one, knowing her reputation and his, you wouldn't expect that. Number two, he's a Jew, she's a Samaritan, you wouldn't expect it. But Jesus doesn't care about those things. He wanted to have this conversation with her. So first thing he says is he asks for some water, and which ends up sort of leading to this conversation about living water and him sort of revealing a little bit about himself in that. He then tells her, go and call your husband, which then she reveals, well, that's not really possible right now. And he's like, yeah, you're right, because you've been married 5 times and the guy you're with right now is not your husband, showing the fact that he's God and he knows these things, and she is just in awe. Then they end up having this discussion about where they're supposed to worship. As a Samaritan, she thinks they're supposed to worship like in their area. Jesus, as a Jew, finds the proper place of worship in the temple in Jerusalem. So they have sort of this debate about kind of traditions and place of worship and those types of things. But as he reveals more about himself and about her, she sort of comes to faith in him and leaves her water jar, runs back into town and tells the whole village, like, look, you got to come meet this guy. He's told me everything I've ever done. He says he's the Messiah, and I think I think this is really him. And a lot of people believe because of her testimony. So that's sort of kind of briefly the story, but what lessons can we learn from her? Okay, now look, a lot of these that we've done, I've tried to give some examples like, let's be like this person, right? This is one where, look, there are some things where we don't want to be like her, and there are some things where we do. So let's talk about sort of the bad. One thing I think we can see in the fact that she's been married 5 times and is now with someone who she's not married to. Human relationships, especially romantic relationships, should not take a greater precedence in our lives than our relationship with God. And we can all fall into that trap of thinking that these other relationships, they take a greater priority in our life. This woman was seeking love and significance, I think, in all these different relationships, and nothing worked out right. And this relationship with God was really what she needed. And I look, as a side note from that, divorce, living together before you're married, this story tells us that that's sinful. And so we want to try and avoid that and honor God with our relationships. The second thing that I see in her that we want to learn from, that we don't want to repeat, is that sometimes our traditions get in the way of us seeking God. Traditions aren't bad in of themselves. Sometimes they can help us draw near to God. Sometimes we get so attached to our traditions, our own way of thinking, that we don't see God for who he really is. So let's make sure that we're open to seeing God, even if it's different than the way we've always done it. And sometimes as Southern Baptists, we're happy to do things the way we've always done it. And so we want to be open to where God is leading. But there's also a couple of good things that I think we can be like her. One thing we can see in her is God can change you. You can change. No matter who you are, no matter where you've been, you can change. You can do better moving forward. And she's a great example of that, as Ms. Diane pointed out. All signs point to the fact that she turned from her sinful ways and followed Jesus and believed in him. And if she can, you can, and we all can. The second thing is that God can use you no matter who you are, no matter where you've been, what you've done. God wants to use you. This woman who nobody in that town respected, I'm sure, now runs back into town, tells them about the Messiah. They're like, oh, we got to check this out. And many believe just because of her testimony before even meeting Jesus. And then he stayed for a couple of days, and even more believed after hearing him teach. She had an amazing impact on, there are many people in heaven because of her impact just that very day. We can tell others about Jesus. God can use us to share the gospel, to bring blessing and encouragement to other people. So no matter who you are, no matter what you've done, where you've been, what you've been involved in, God wants to use you. So let's move forward, reaching out to bless other people and share the good news of Jesus with whoever we can. And we can be like this woman in that way. So, all right, we got 2 more, Wednesday and Friday. Wednesday, we'll talk about Dorcas. And Friday, we'll talk about Priscilla. So hope you guys have an awesome week. Thanks for being here. Love you. We'll see you later.